Unknown, Henderson Field, Guadalcanal, 200 hours. In the stifling darkness of the Solomon Islands, Private Robert Young Deere of the 164th Infantry Regiment gives his M1 Garand rifle one final check before settling into position. His unit arrived on the island just 11 days earlier on October 13th, marking their entry as the first U.S. Army formation to conduct offensive operations against Japanese forces. Now side by side with Marines still equipped with bolt-action Springfield rifles, the soldiers of the 164th clenched their semi-automatic weapons tightly, each loaded with 8 rounds per en-bloc clip. Suddenly, through the oppressive heat and the cacophony of nocturnal insects, a sound that sends shivers down every American soldier's spine pierces the night air. Thousands of Japanese troops are charging forward, their screams of banzai and tochujiki ringing loud and clear. Leading one of these attacking platoons is Lieutenant Kenji Yamamoto of the 29th Infantry Regiment. His Type 38 Arisaka rifle, with its long 31.4-inch barrel, feels cumbersome in the dense jungle undergrowth. The rifle's 5-round internal magazine requires him to manually cycle each round into place. Up, back, forward, down with every shot fired. Some of his newer troops are armed with Type 99 rifles chambered for a more powerful 7.758mm cartridge. But they too are bolt-action weapons limited to 5 rounds before needing to reload from stripper clips. Over the next 12 hours, the ferocity of this combat will reveal an overwhelming advantage in firepower that American infantry possessed, a technological edge Japanese forces did not anticipate. The semi-automatic action and 8-round capacity of the M1 Garand rifle, coupled with its powerful 30-6 Springfield cartridge, provided U.S. soldiers a rate of fire and stopping power that their bolt-action Arisaka counterparts could not match. This disparity would prove decisive in determining the outcome of infantry engagements throughout the Pacific theater, from the sweltering jungles of New Guinea to the volcanic terrain of Iwo Jima. While Japanese soldiers displayed incredible bravery and determination, they were disadvantaged by rifle technology that was outdated for modern warfare. The M1 Garand's superiority stemmed not only from its design but also from the mass production capabilities that allowed American forces to field a weapon with unparalleled effectiveness in combat conditions. This advantage would be replicated across numerous battles, contributing significantly to the ultimate American victory. The M1 Garand was developed by Canadian-American designer John C. Garand, who began his work at Springfield Armory in 1919. Following nearly 2 decades of development, testing, and fine-tuning, the United States Army officially embraced the design on January 9, 1936, marking America as the first country to equip its infantry with a semi-automatic rifle. This weapon utilized the potent .236 Springfield cartridge, propelling a 150-grain empty tube-bore projectile at a velocity of 850 feet per second from a 24-inch barrel, delivering an impressive muzzle energy of 656 foot-pounds. The brilliance of Garand's invention resided in its gas-operated rotating bolt mechanism. A portion of the propellant gases was captured via a port near the muzzle, driving an operating rod that automatically cycled the action with each shot. Upon pulling the trigger, 1 round would fire. The gas pressure then ejected the spent casing and chambered the next round without requiring any manual operation from the shooter. A trained soldier could achieve between 40 to 50 accurate shots per minute, a significant improvement over the 15 to 20 rounds possible with bolt-action rifles. The 8-round clip inserted above into the fixed magazine could be reloaded in under 3 seconds by an experienced rifleman. The development process encountered numerous hurdles. Initial prototypes employed a primer-actuated system that was unreliable. Originally designed for the .276 Pedersen cartridge, General Douglas MacArthur intervened in 1932, insisting on maintaining the .30-36 Springfield round to utilize existing ammunition reserves. While this decision delayed production, it ultimately proved beneficial as the powerful .306 cartridge provided superior long-range performance and stopping power. The Arisaka rifles originated from Colonel Narakira Arisaka's original Type 30 design of 1897, intended to replace the ill-equipped Murata rifles in service at that time. By World War II, Japanese forces primarily utilized two variants, the Type 38, adopted in 1905, and the Type 99, introduced in 1939 of the 259th year of the Japanese calendar. The Type 38 fired the 6.50 maximum semi-rimmed cartridge with a 9-grain bullet at a velocity of 500 feet per second, generating approximately 650 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. The Type 99 used the more powerful 7.7 58 mm cartridge, firing an 182-grain bullet at 400 feet per second and delivering 300 foot-pounds of energy. Both Arisaka models were bolt-action rifles with 5-round internal magazines that could be loaded via 5-round stripper clips. The Type 38's extraordinarily long barrel, measuring 31.4 inches, made it one of the longest infantry rifles ever deployed, contributing to exceptional long-range accuracy but proving cumbersome in jungle warfare where engagement distances rarely exceeded 100 yards. Although the shorter-barreled Type 99's at 25.9 inches was more manageable, its introduction came too late to fully replace the Type 38. The Arisaka action itself demonstrated remarkable strength. Post-war testing revealed that it surpassed the durability of American Springfield, British Lee Enfield, and German Moser actions. The firearms incorporated a silent, innovative safety feature and featured a bolt design with a gas escape mechanism to safeguard the shooter if a cartridge case ruptured. Nevertheless, these engineering advancements were insufficient to address the inherent drawback of manual bolt operation during an era marked by escalating firepower. The contrast in industrial capabilities between America and Japan was strikingly evident in their rifle production statistics. From 1936 to 1945, American manufacturers churned out around 5.4 million M1 Garand rifles. Springfield Armory led the way with approximately 3.5 million units, while Winchester Repeating Arms Company produced about 513 80-80 rifles. International Harvester and Harrington and Richardson also contributed additional production during the Korean War period. By January 1944, Springfield Armory reached a peak daily output of 1,000 rifles, whereas Winchester's maximum rate was 600 per day. This significant manufacturing capacity ensured that nearly every American infantry soldier and Marine in the Pacific Theater carried semi-automatic rifles by mid-1943. The U.S. military's distribution system prioritized combat units, with the Marine Corps receiving about 22,000 M1 Garands monthly early in 1943 despite initial hesitations to adopt the weapon. By the end of fiscal year 1942, the Marine Corps had amassed 62 886 M1 Garands, although not all were deployed on the front lines. In stark contrast, Japanese rifle production from 1905 to 1945 was considerably lower in terms of output and efficiency. Across various arsenals like Koziawa, later Tokyo, Kakura, Nagoya and Mokden Arsenal in occupied Manchuria, Japan manufactured roughly 3 million Type 38 rifles. From 1939 to 1945, approximately 3.5 million Type 99 rifles were produced at 9 different arsenals, including Mukden in Manchukuo and Jinsen in Korea. Despite these substantial production figures totaling over 6 million rifles, Japan failed to achieve the necessary production rates to fully modernize their infantry armament. Consequently, many second-line troops, garrison forces, and naval infantry units still relied on Type 38 rifles by war's end, complicating logistics due to two different ammunition types being in use. American M. Garand production maintained a consistently high quality throughout the conflict. Springfield Armory's stringent quality control ensured rejection of any rifle failing to achieve a 5-inch grouping at 100 yards. Interchangeability of parts between rifles from various manufacturers was strictly mandated through detailed specifications and gauging requirements. A damaged M1 Garand could be repaired in the field using salvaged components regardless of their origin, enhancing its durability and versatility for frontline use. In 1942, advancements in heat treatment techniques led to enhanced receiver strength compared to pre-war production levels. Finishes were refined for practicality rather than cost savings. The transition from blued steel to parkerized finishes improved resistance to corrosion in tropical climates. Due to a shortage of walnut, manufacturers began using birch and other hardwoods, but this did not affect the weapon's performance. As the war progressed, Late war production saw changes such as stamped trigger guards replacing milled ones, with extensive testing to ensure reliability. In contrast, Japanese manufacturing quality significantly declined as the conflict continued. Early Type 99 rifles were notable for their innovative features, including chrome-lined barrels, the first of their kind, anti-aircraft sights with folding prongs, dust covers to protect the action, and integral wire monopods for stability. The finish was a deep blue, and stocks were crafted from high-quality Japanese hardwood with intricate inlays. By 1944, these refinements had been phased out due to production pressures and material shortages. Later rifles showed rough machining marks, simplified rear sights that eliminated the complex ladder sight, wooden butt plates replacing metal ones, and inferior wood with poor fitment. Some final production models lacked even basic finishing, leaving visible tool marks on all metal surfaces. The chrome lining disappeared as chromium became scarce, monopods were removed, and the imperial chrysanthemum marking was crudely stamped instead of precisely rolled. The M1 Garand's semi-automatic action offered several tactical advantages beyond an increased rate of fire. After each shot, the soldier could maintain their sight picture and cheek weld while the rifle automatically cycled. This facilitated faster target reacquisition and more accurate follow-up shots. The operating rod, powered by gas pressure tapped near the muzzle, functioned reliably even when fouled with mud, sand, volcanic ash, or carbon buildup from sustained firing. While the end-block clip system was sometimes criticized for its distinctive ejection sound that might alert enemies to an empty magazine, it actually allowed for the fastest reload among contemporary military rifles. A trained soldier could reload in under 3 seconds compared to 5 to 7 seconds required by a skilled user with stripper clips on a bolt-action rifle. The clip ejection also provided immediate tactile and audible confirmation of an empty magazine, preventing confusion that could occur with other types of rifles. Weighing in at 9.5 pounds, the M1 rifle was considered heavy by contemporary standards but effectively managed the significant recoil generated by its .36 caliber cartridge, allowing for quick and precise follow-up shots. Its overall length of 43.6 inches was well balanced, with weight distributed evenly between the hefty barrel and sturdy woodstock stock. Although not on par with match-grade triggers, the rifle's two-stage military trigger provided consistent performance that soldiers could learn to use effectively through training. In contrast, the Arisaka rifles, despite their robust design and potential for accuracy, were hampered by inherent limitations of bolt-action operation in Pacific theater combat. After each discharge, soldiers had to manually cycle the bolt through a sequence of 4 distinct steps, rotating it upward, pulling it fully back to extract and eject the spent cartridge, pushing it forward to chamber a fresh round from the magazine, and finally rotating it downward to lock. This procedure interrupted the shooter's firing stance, disturbed sight alignment, and took 2 to 3 seconds even for well-trained soldiers. The Type 38 rifle's length of 50.3 inches rendered it particularly unsuitable for jungle warfare. Japanese troops encountered difficulties as the rifle snagged on vines, was hard to maneuver in dense foliage, and nearly impossible to use effectively in confined spaces such as bunkers or fortified positions. The extended barrel, while providing superior long-range accuracy with minimal bullet drop, proved disadvantageous when combat engagements typically occurred within 100 yards, often at close quarters. With a 5-round magazine capacity, Japanese soldiers had to reload approximately 60% more frequently than their American counterparts to fire the same number of rounds. Loading via stripper clips required opening the bolt, positioning the clip correctly, pressing the rounds down into the magazine while removing the clip, and then closing the bolt, a process taking between 5 to 7 seconds under ideal conditions and much longer during combat stress or in awkward firing positions. The M1 Garand utilized the .30-06 Springfield cartridge, which was already standardized across various U.S. military weapons, including the M1903 Springfield rifle, M1917 Browning machine gun, M1919 Browning machine gun, and the Browning automatic rifle. This commonality greatly simplified logistical challenges by allowing a single ammunition type to supply rifles, automatic rifles, and machine guns alike. The design of these cartridges, with their rimless feature, fed reliably from clips, belts, and magazines. Ammunition production was staggering. For instance, the Lake City Army ammunition plant alone could produce 200 million rounds annually by 1943, while additional facilities such as Frankfurt Arsenal and Denver Ordnance Plant contributed hundreds of millions more rounds. Rigorous quality control ensured consistent ballistics performance, with M2 ball ammunition maintaining a velocity variation of less than 40 feet per second between lots. Japanese forces encountered a complicated ammunition dilemma. Units armed with Type 38 rifles needed 6.5x50M semi-rimmed cartridges, whereas those equipped with Type 99 rifles required 7.6x58mm rounds. The lighter 6.5 mm round allowed soldiers to carry more bullets due to reduced recoil, but was ineffective against entrenched positions and lacked stopping power. In contrast, the heavier 7.7 mm round improved performance but introduced a dual supply requirement, complicating logistics. This two-caliber system led to persistent issues such as documented cases of the 23rd Infantry Regiment at Guadalcanal receiving incompatible ammunition for their Type 38 rifles, rendering both weapons and supplies useless. Similar mix-ups were reported during the Philippine campaign and on isolated island garrisons. The semi-rimmed design of the 6.5 mm cartridge sometimes feeding issues in tropical environments where corrosion could occur. When the U.S. Army's 164th Infantry Regiment, a North Dakota National Guard unit, arrived at Guadalcanal on October 13, 1942, they brought M1 Garand rifles, which were desperately needed by the Marines, who were still primarily armed with MT-9003 Springfield bolt-action rifles. The Marines watched in awe and skepticism as the Army soldiers unloaded their semi-automatic weapons. During the critical battle for Henderson Field from October 24 to 25, 1942, the advantages of these new rifles became evident. Staff Sergeant Mitchell Page, a Marine armed with a machine gun rather than a rifle, witnessed firsthand the effectiveness of the Army's firepower. Private First Class James Cass of Company M164th Infantry later recounted, "The Japanese attacked in waves, barely visible except for the glint of their bayonets in the darkness. With our Garands, we could fire 8 rounds at them before they covered 30 yards. Each soldier was like a machine gun section. We'd squeeze the trigger, fire and cycle again. No need to operate the bolt or break our sight picture. Just squeeze, boom, 8 times before reloading." The 64th's companies were fed into the line piecemeal as the Japanese assault developed, reinforcing Marine positions that were beginning to weaken. The devastating semi-automatic fire from the fresh Army troops helped stabilize the front. Colonel Bryant Moore, who led the 164th Regiment, stated that his soldiers fired over 250,000 rounds of .30 caliber ammunition during the 2-day battle. Japanese casualties were piled up in front of the positions held by the Scene 64th, many killed by the swift and precise fire from M1 Garands. Marine Private Robert Leakey, who later penned Helmet for My Pillow, watched as the Army troops engaged in combat. Initially, he thought they appeared inexperienced, calling them green dogfusses with their modern rifles. However, when the Japanese launched an assault, those M1s unleashed a barrage of fire unlike any Leakey had witnessed before. It was like hearing a continuous roar rather than the intermittent shots from his Springfield rifle. Sergeant Maso Watanabe of the 29th Infantry Regiment in the 2nd Division Sendai survived the October offensive at Guadalcanal. In his post-war memoir, uncovered in Japanese military archives, he wrote, "We were told that the Americans were weak and our Yamato spirit would triumph over their material superiority. Our officers claimed 1 Japanese soldier equaled 10 Americans. Yet when we charged into their lines on that October night, it was as though hitting a solid wall of lead bullets. Each American appeared to have an automatic weapon at hand. In contrast, the Arisaka rifles we used felt outdated compared to our father's weapons from the Russo-Japanese War. We would fire once, reload while taking cover, and then fire again, a slow process. During this time, American soldiers had already fired multiple rounds. Watanabe noted that Japanese tactics developed against Chinese forces with inferior weaponry or limited ammunition proved futile against American firepower. The Banzai charges that scattered poorly equipped Chinese troops were ineffective against relentless American rifle fire. We couldn't close the distance to use our bayonets, any supposed advantage in hand-to-hand combat was irrelevant when we fell 50 meters from their lines. Lieutenant Hiroshi Takahashi of the 230th Infantry Regiment also commented on this lethal American firepower in a letter found after his death. He described the American automatic rifles as devastatingly effective. Each soldier has the same rapid-firing capability as a light machine gun. During an advance, it creates such a racket that it seems like we are facing a heavily fortified enemy position armed with nothing but machine guns. Our soldiers often fall before they can even reload their rifles for another shot. In December 1943, at Cape Gloucester, Marines of the 1st Marine Division, who had been equipped with M1 Garands following their earlier deployment on Guadalcanal, landed amidst torrential rain on New Britain Island. Private First Class Eugene Sledge, who later documented his experiences in With the Old Breed, noted how reliable these rifles were under extreme conditions. The Garand was our most dependable piece of gear. In heavy rainfall that seemed to pour down like waterfalls and mud that clung to everything as if it were quicksand, this rifle continued to function flawlessly. Japanese soldiers, armed with bolt-action weapons, could not match the rate at which we fired. In the dense jungle terrain, when setting up defensive positions, we managed to saturate areas with so much gunfire that leaves would rain down from the trees. Sergeant John Bassalone of the 1st Marine Division, who had earned a Medal of Honor for his actions involving machine guns during the battle on Guadalcanal, also carried an M1 Garand as part of his personal arsenal, he observed. The Garand gave every Marine 3 times the firepower compared to soldiers with bolt-action rifles. In the jungle environment where fleeting glimpses of enemies might be all that was available, being able to fire repeatedly without needing to manually reload meant the difference between eliminating an enemy or allowing them to escape and potentially kill us later. During the Battle of Saipan in June 1944, a massive Banzai charge involving over 3,000 Japanese soldiers launched a desperate pre-dawn assault against American lines. On July 7th, Private First Class Harold Agerholm from the 4th Marine Division, armed with his M1 Garand, played a crucial role in repelling this formidable attack. Corporal John Miller remembered, "The Japs came at us shoulder to shoulder, screaming like banshees. Our Garands never ceased firing. As soon as we pulled the trigger, another round would be fired. The sound of empty clips ejecting was constant, almost like a symphony of death. Japanese soldiers with their bolt-action rifles could only manage 1 or 2 shots before our semi-automatics took them out." In September 1944 on Peleliu, the 1st Marine Division encountered Japanese troops who had adapted from previous losses. Instead of launching suicidal Banzai attacks, they entrenched themselves in fortified positions. However, even defensively positioned, their bolt-action Arisaka rifles were outmatched. Corporal R.V. Burgeon recounted, "Upon spotting a target, we could inundate it with gunfire. 4 or 5 Marines equipped with Garands could deliver 40 rounds into a cave entrance within the time it took for them to fire just 5 or 6 shots back. This allowed us to suppress their positions while others maneuvered with flamethrowers and explosives. American training focused on maximizing the semi-automatic capabilities of the M1 Garand rifle. Soldiers underwent rigorous instruction at various camps, including Fort Benning and Camp Perry, where they spent weeks honing their skills with these weapons. The standard qualification course required engaging targets from 100 to 500 yards, emphasizing rapid fire accuracy and smooth trigger control. The Army's Field Manual FM 23-5 specified that soldiers should achieve a sustained rate of 40 to 50 aimed shots per minute in combat. Training emphasized maintaining proper sight alignment between shots without breaking position due to the rifle's semi-automatic action. Soldiers were taught to fire, observe impacts, adjust aim and re-engage quickly, fully utilizing the M1's capabilities. Training with live ammunition was generous. Basic trainees fired a minimum of 200 rounds during qualification, with additional rounds for advanced training. Units preparing for deployment often used thousands of rounds per soldier, which built muscle memory and confidence crucial in combat situations. Initially skeptical about the M1 Garand due to concerns over ammunition waste and potential marksmanship standards erosion, the Marine Corps developed more intensive training programs. Their doctrine emphasized accurate volume fire rather than indiscriminate shooting, focusing on rapid aimed shots that leveraged the semi-automatic action while upholding traditional marksmanship excellence. Japanese marksmanship training, rooted in samurai traditions of precision and discipline, stressed the principle of one shot, one kills ichijikatsu. This philosophy reflected both spiritual warrior focus and practical limitations of bolt-action rifles. Japanese soldiers received rigorous training at long distances, where the Type 38 rifle's remarkable accuracy was highly valued. The Imperial Japanese Army's manual emphasized, the attack must be driven by the spirit. The rifle and bayonet are extensions of the soldier's will. This focus on spiritual rather than material factors ultimately proved detrimental in the face of American firepower. Soldiers were extensively trained in bayonet combat with daily exercises mimicking caterpillar-like movements. The Type 38's length theoretically gave it an edge in close quarters fighting, but the dense jungle terrain of Pacific battlefields often limited visibility to just a few yards. Banzai charges that had been successful against poorly equipped Chinese or colonial forces met fierce resistance from American semi-automatic rifles. The rapid, rhythmic sound of M1 Garand fire, punctuated by distinctive clip ejections, became a psychological deterrent for Japanese troops. A 1943 training document captured during the war advised soldiers, American automatic rifles produce a noise like multiple machine guns firing. Do not let this discourage you. Remember your spiritual superiority and press forward with resolve. However, such spiritual strength could not withstand the relentless material reality of American firepower. Yukio Nakamura, a Japanese soldier captured on Saipan, recounted to interrogators, "We were told that Americans relied on machines rather than warrior spirit, but their rifles fired non-stop without ceasing. It was as if we faced machines, not men. Our officers instructed us to advance with bayonets fixed, but we were overwhelmed before reaching the enemy close enough to use them." In contrast, American forces derived tremendous confidence from their superior firepower. Marine Corporal James Russell remembered, "With the ability to fire 8 rounds rapidly, you felt nearly invincible. When Japanese troops charged, there was no panic. Instead, one simply continued shooting until the threat subsided or it became necessary to reload due to an empty magazine." At the squad level, the M1 Garand superiority was even more evident. An American rifle squad consisting of 12 soldiers equipped with 10 M1 Garands and 2 Browning automatic rifles could sustain fire at a rate of 400 to 500 rounds per minute. A Japanese squad armed with Arisaka rifles, on the other hand, might achieve only 150 to 180 rounds per minute, assuming well-trained soldiers operating their bolt-action weapons at peak speed. This significant difference in firepower fundamentally altered small unit tactics. American squads could effectively engage in fire and maneuver operations where one fire team provided suppressing fire while another advanced. The volume of accurate semi-automatic rifle fire allowed American forces to maintain enemy suppression, enabling them to close with and neutralize Japanese positions. In contrast, Japanese squads struggled to generate sufficient suppressive fire due to their bolt-action rifles, which hindered their mobility. At the company level, typically comprising 200 men, this disparity became even more pronounced. American rifle companies could deliver overwhelming defensive fire against Japanese assaults. For instance, during the October 24th to 25th Battle for Henderson Field, companies of the 16th Infantry Regiment showcased this capability. Company G of the 64th Infantry reported expending 30,000 rounds of 30 Lawson 6 ammunition in a single night of fighting, an average of 150 rounds per soldier, while sustaining only light casualties. The sheer volume of semi-automatic fire made it nearly impossible for human courage alone to overcome. A Japanese battalion of approximately 800 men conducting a banzai charge faced American companies capable of delivering an astounding 8,000 aimed rounds per minute. Even accounting for the chaos and fear during nighttime combat, the overwhelming firepower created lethal kill zones that were virtually insurmountable by enemy forces. The effectiveness of the M1 Garand played a crucial role in facilitating the success of America's island hopping strategy during World War II. American troops were able to secure Japanese held islands with confidence, knowing they could establish and maintain beachheads despite counterattacks. The superior firepower provided by M1 equipped infantry units allowed smaller numbers of soldiers to defend larger areas, enabling rapid reinforcement for offensive operations. This pattern was repeated across numerous islands such as Tarawa, Guadalcanal, Anu, Saipan, Guam, Palau, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. Japanese forces struggled to compete with American firepower, resorting to increasingly desperate measures like banzai charges before eventually adopting a defense-in-depth strategy. Even when entrenched in fortified positions, the slow reloading process of bolt-action rifles made it difficult for Japanese soldiers to capitalize on any openings presented by advancing U.S. troops. The reliance of the Imperial Japanese Army on bolt-action rifles was largely influenced by their victory in the Russo-Japanese War from 1904 to 1905. During this conflict, Japanese infantrymen armed with Type 30 and Type 35 Arisaka rifles had outperformed Russian forces through superior training, discipline, and tactical innovation, as evidenced at Mukden and during the siege of Port Arthur. This triumph led many within the military establishment to believe that factors like spirit and willpower were more decisive in warfare than technological advancements. Consequently, a blind spot developed regarding technological progress. Officers who idolized Japan's emergence as a major power following the Russo-Japanese War failed to acknowledge fundamental changes in modern warfare. World War I had demonstrated the overwhelming importance of firepower over individual combat prowess, but Japan's limited involvement in that conflict prevented it from fully grasping this shift. In contrast, the United States learned valuable lessons during World War I and subsequently adopted the M1 Garand rifle. General John J. Pershing, commander of the American Expeditionary Forces, had witnessed firsthand the destructive power of automatic weapons on the battlefields of France in 1918. He recognized the need for a semi-automatic rifle and stated, "The soldier who can deliver the most accurate fire in the shortest time will dominate future battlefields." This vision spurred the development that would eventually result in the M1 Garand. Over nearly 2 decades, the United States dedicated significant effort to refining the design of the M1 Garand through rigorous testing and building up the necessary industrial capacity for mass production. By 1936, when the United States adopted the M1 rifle, it wasn't just a superior firearm, it was part of an extensive system for its manufacture, maintenance, and supply. Japan eventually realized the necessity of semi-automatic rifles as well. Development of domestic designs started in the 1930s, including the Typeco rifle designed by Kojiro Nambu and various gas-operated prototypes. However, these initiatives were given low priority due to resource allocation towards aircraft, naval vessels, and other programs deemed more essential. Most notably, Japan's attempt to replicate the M1 Garand as the Type 4 rifle, sometimes erroneously referred to as the Type 5, resulted in only about 250 part sets being produced, with roughly between 100 to 125 rifles actually assembled by the end of the war. Chambered for 7.7 Nanjami Japanese ammunition and fed from a 10-round internal magazine loaded via 2.5-round stripper clips, the Type 4 demonstrated Japan's understanding of the M1's advantages but fell short in terms of industrial capacity for mass production. The calculus of firepower revealed an overwhelming American edge. The M1 Garand firing M2 ball ammunition delivered 2 60-56 lube of energy at the muzzle, with a trained soldier discharging 40 rounds per minute. This equated to 106 240-foot lube of energy delivered per minute. In contrast, The bolt-action Type 19 Arisaka firing 7.7 mm ammunition and delivering 2 300 L per shot at a practical rate of 15 rounds per minute yielded only 34 500 L per minute, less than 1/3 of the M1's energy output. The 30-06 Springfield cartridge had a trajectory superior to that of the 6.5 mm Arisaka at typical Pacific combat distances. At 300 yards, an unusually long engagement range in jungle warfare, the 30-06 dropped only 13.5 inches from line of sight while retaining 1/900th at Lviv of energy, sufficient to penetrate multiple layers of vegetation and incapacitate enemies. Conversely, the 6.5 Arisaka dropped just 11 inches at this range but retained only 100th at Lb of energy, often insufficient for penetration through cover. U.S. Army ordnance tests conducted at Aberdeen Proving Ground in 1940 quantified the M1's superiority. In controlled trials, soldiers armed with M1 Garands achieved an average of 24 aimed shots per minute at 200 yards with a hit rate of 90% on man-sized targets. Soldiers equipped with M1903 Springfields, functionally similar to Arisaka operation, managed only 10 aimed shots per minute, albeit with an 85% accuracy rate. In rapid fire scenarios simulating sudden attacks, soldiers armed with M1s were able to engage 3 separate targets in the time it took bolt-action users to target one. Further testing examined sustained firing over extended periods. After 5 minutes of continuous shooting, those equipped with M1s maintained 80% of their initial rate of fire, whereas bolt-action users dropped to 60% due to fatigue from operating the bolt mechanism. The M1 rifle's semi-automatic mechanism necessitated just the movement of a trigger finger, whereas bolt-action operation required larger arm and shoulder movements. Combat data from battles in the Pacific highlighted significant differences. During the Guadalcanal campaign, Army units armed with M1 Garands used an average of 150 to 200 rounds per soldier each day of intense fighting. In contrast, Marine units still using Springfield rifles fired only 60 to 80 rounds per person under similar circumstances. This discrepancy did not indicate wasteful ammunition usage, but rather underscored the M1's superior capacity for delivering rapid and effective fire against fleeting targets. Japanese forces typically expended no more than 40 to 50 rounds per soldier daily, constrained by both limited supplies and the mechanical limitations of bolt-action rifles. Post-battle reports from captured Japanese soldiers often mentioned ammunition shortages. Even when ample ammunition was available, the slow rate of bolt-action firing further restricted consumption. Throughout the war, Japanese military documents showed growing recognition of American firepower superiority. Lieutenant General Harukichi Hyakute, commanding the 17th Army at Guadalcanal, noted in November 1942 that the enemy's rifle fire is denser and more accurate than we anticipated. It seems each soldier is equipped with an automatic weapon. Our forces cannot gain fire superiority despite numerical advantages. I recommend emphasizing night operations and infiltration tactics to counter the enemy's firepower advantage. By 1944, Japanese tactical doctrine had evolved to address American material superiority. Instructions for defending the Mariana Islands stated that the enemy's automatic rifles and machine guns create an impenetrable wall of fire during daylight hours. All attacks must be conducted at night or under cover of adverse weather conditions. Moving in broad daylight invites annihilation. Lieutenant General Tadamichi Kurabayashi, a strategic defender of Iwo Jima, wrote in January 1945 that the American automatic rifles are remarkable weapons. Each soldier possesses firepower equivalent to 3 or 4 of our riflemen. Wasteful frontal assaults against such power would be futile. Instead, they decided to make their opponents pay for every meter of ground taken from well-fortified positions. Their defensive approach, which prioritized holding ground rather than launching suicidal attacks, extended the duration of battles but failed to counter American material advantages. The Japanese attempted to enhance infantry firepower through various means. One such effort was the introduction of the Type 100 submachine gun in 1942, designed to offer automatic fire capabilities. However, despite these efforts, production levels remained low, with only around 27,000 units manufactured by the end of the war. Far too few to significantly impact the overall strategic situation. Moreover, the Type 100 submachine gun was chambered for an 8mm pistol cartridge, which had limited range and stopping power compared to what was needed in Pacific combat scenarios. A more revealing example was their attempt to replicate the M1 Garand rifle. When American forces seized the Yokosuka Naval Arsenal in 1945, they uncovered the Type 4 rifle project. Engineers at Yokosuka had reverse-engineered captured M1 rifles and adapted them to use Japanese 7.7mm ammunition with a 10-round internal magazine loaded using standard 5-round stripper clips. The Japanese even incorporated enhancements like a rubber recoil pad and a last round bolt-hold open mechanism, but industrial constraints prevented mass production of this sophisticated design. Although parts for approximately 250 rifles had been manufactured, only between 100 and 125 were fully assembled into working weapons by war's end. This project underscored that Japanese military engineers comprehended the M1 Garand's advantages yet lacked the necessary industrial capacity to manufacture it in significant quantities. Additionally, cultural resistance within the military against prioritizing material factors over spiritual ones further hindered progress. Colonel Masanobu Tsuji, a staff officer who served across multiple theaters, remarked after the war, "We knew the Americans had better weapons, but acknowledging this openly would have undermined troop morale. Maintaining belief in our spiritual superiority was essential even as soldiers were cut down by American automatic fire." This cultural aversion also manifested in training practices, which continued to emphasize bayonet fighting and night infiltration over marksmanship skills well into 1944. The official infantry manual dedicated only 3 pages to rifle shooting instruction, but 12 pages to spiritual preparation and bayonet techniques. This skewed focus reflected deeply held beliefs about the nature of warfare that were difficult to reconcile with practical realities. The Battle of Okinawa, which took place from April to June 1945, served as the ultimate test of American military might against the staunch resolve of Japanese forces. On this strategic island just off Japan's coast, approximately 180,000 US troops engaged with about 120,000 Japanese defenders in what would become the bloodiest conflict in the Pacific theater. Under Lieutenant General Mitsuru Ushima's command, the Japanese had learned from their earlier defeats and adopted a more defensive strategy. They constructed extensive fortifications with Okinawa's rugged terrain instead of engaging in futile banzai charges. However, even in defense, the limitations of bolt-action rifles became apparent. When American forces advanced, Japanese defenders armed with Arisaka rifles were often unable to maintain an effective rate of fire sufficient to halt the enemy's progress. Desmond Doss, a conscientious objector who would later receive the Medal of Honor for his bravery as a medic, described the scene. "The sound of our Garand rifles was like one continuous roar, which allowed me to move freely and rescue wounded soldiers. If everyone had been using bolt-action rifles like the Japanese, I wouldn't have been able to save any of those men." On May 4, 1945, the Japanese launched their sole major counteroffensive during the battle. Approximately 5,000 troops attacked American lines in a well-coordinated assault aimed at breaking through to the rear areas. The operation began with an intense artillery barrage, 12,000 rounds fired over just 30 minutes, the largest such bombardment managed by Japanese forces throughout the Pacific War. As Japanese infantry emerged from their positions and charged across open ground, they encountered a relentless wall of American firepower. Private First Class Martin Brennan of the 17th Infantry Regiment later recounted, "They came at us in waves, but not like the chaotic banzai charges we had witnessed before. These were organized attacks supported by fire, yet our Garand rifles kept firing without pause. 8 shots followed by a quick reload and another 8 rounds. The noise was overwhelming. The Japanese, with their bolt-action weapons, could manage only 1 or 2 shots at most before being cut down by our semi-automatic rifle fire. The assault was repelled by overwhelming American firepower, resulting in devastating losses for Japanese forces. 4,000 dead compared to 70-14 American casualties. The relentless barrage from thousands of M1 Garands, bolstered by automatic weapons and artillery, transformed the battlefield into a lethal zone where Japanese bravery could not compensate for their inferior weaponry. Even when Japanese soldiers managed to breach American lines, the superior firepower provided by semi-automatic rifles proved decisive in close-quarters combat. Sergeant William Manchester, who would later become an acclaimed historian, participated in the Battle of Okinawa with the 29th Marines. He recalled, "The M1 rifle was our greatest ally. During the chaos of hand-to-hand fighting, being able to fire 8 rounds without manually operating the bolt mechanism saved countless American lives." I witnessed Japanese soldiers struggling with their bolt-action rifles while under heavy fire. Their trembling hands fumbled as ours continued firing steadily. For Operation Downfall, which planned to commence with Operation Olympic in November 1945, military strategists anticipated that the M1 Garand would be instrumental. Analyzing casualty rates from Okinawa, planners concluded that American forces required significant firepower superiority to counter expected Japanese resistance on the home islands. To this end, production plans called for an additional 500,000 replacement M1 rifles by August 1945, with Springfield Armory and Winchester ramping up production to produce 2,000 rifles daily. The ammunition requirement was also immense, with planners estimating a need for 100 million rounds of .30 caliber per month solely for rifle use, a testament to the anticipated volume of fire from M1 armed troops. Intelligence reports indicated that Japanese homeland defense would include roughly 2.5 million Arisaka rifles in military hands and millions more distributed among civilian militia units, though many were outdated models or makeshift single-shot weapons. American intelligence questioned the safety of the Type 99 substitute standard rifles being produced in 1945 due to their crude design. Military planners anticipated that each invasion beach would require naval gunfire and aerial bombardment to suppress Japanese positions, followed by assault troops equipped with M1 Garands to provide the necessary volume of fire to overcome defenders. Studies of battles in the Pacific demonstrated that American forces armed with semi-automatic rifles suffered 40% fewer casualties than those projected for troops using bolt-action rifles under similar conditions. Acknowledging their inferiority in firepower, the Japanese devised strategies that heavily relied on suicidal tactics, including the use of civilians as human shields and close-quarters combat within urban environments to mitigate the effectiveness of rifle advantages. After the war, secret plans were uncovered, revealing desperate measures such as equipping civilians with bamboo spears, deploying suicide swimmers armed with explosive charges, and even contemplating the deployment of biological weapons. The Arisaka rifle, once celebrated by the Imperial Army, had become a minor element in an overall defensive strategy. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki brought World War II to a close before Operation Downfall could be initiated. Post-war analysis indicated that American casualties could have ranged from 500,000 to 1 million, with Japanese losses potentially reaching into the millions. The M1 Garand's superior firepower would have been crucial, but an extremely high cost in human lives on both sides. The success of the M1 Garand influenced rifle development across the globe. During World War II, the Soviet Union struggled with limited production of its SVT-40 semi-automatic rifle and subsequently developed the SKS carbine inspired by captured M1 Garands. China's Type 56 carbine was essentially a replica of the Soviet SKS. France advanced its Mass 49, drawing on both the M1 Garand and pre-war experiments with semi-automatic rifles. Even Britain, known for its conservative approach to small arms adoption and satisfaction with the Lee Enfield during the war, started developing semi-automatic rifles shortly after the conflict's conclusion. The Belgian 549, Swiss Saugu 57, and Italian BM-59 all demonstrated the impact of American semi-automatic success in World War II. The M1 Garand continued its service through the Korean War, where it proved superior to the bolt-action rifles used by Chinese and North Korean forces during early stages of the conflict. Equipped with M1 Garands and supported by automatic weapons, American forces repeatedly halted large-scale human wave attacks reminiscent of Japanese banzai charges. The rifle remained in use until gradually being replaced by the M14 in the late 1950s and early 1960s. In a striking historical twist, the United States provided newly formed Japanese self-defense forces with M1 Garand rifles in the 1950s. Former adversaries now trained with weapons that had once been their nemesis. Approximately 150,000 M1 Garands were supplied to Japan through American military assistance programs. Interviews conducted with Japanese veterans in the 1960s frequently pointed to American firepower, particularly the M1 Garand, as a decisive factor in their defeat. Saburo Sakai, one of Japan's leading surviving fighter aces, remarked, "We could match American courage. We can emulate American tactics, but we cannot match their firepower." Each U.S. soldier armed with an automatic rifle was equivalent to 3 of our soldiers in combat effectiveness. Today, both the M1 Garand and Arisaka rifles are highly coveted by collectors for distinct reasons. The civilian marksmanship program has distributed over 500,000 surplus M1 Garands since its inception, making it one of the most widely collected military firearms. Its distinctive ping sound is now an iconic part of popular culture and appears frequently in war films, TV shows, and video games. General Patton's assertion that the M1 is the greatest battle implement ever devised remains unchallenged among World War II infantry weapons. Modern shooting competitions still feature matches with M1 Garands, which continue to exhibit remarkable accuracy by contemporary standards. Japanese Arisaka rifles, especially those bearing intact imperial chrysanthemum markings, are highly prized as collectibles due to their rarity. The chrysanthemum emblem of the emperor was usually removed from rifles before surrender, making original examples rare and valuable. Recent testing has shown that the Arisaka's action is exceptionally robust, even surpassing that of Mauser or Springfield actions. However, this strength could not compensate for the inherent disadvantage of bolt action operation. Interestingly, both weapons have seen combat in the 21st century. M1 Garands were used during conflicts in the Middle East after being supplied decades earlier through military aid programs. Arisaka rifles have been spotted in use by insurgent forces in Afghanistan and Myanmar, highlighting the enduring durability of the design despite its tactical obsolescence. On that October night at Henderson Field in 1942, Private Robert Young Deere of the 64th Infantry Regiment, along with thousands of other American soldiers, demonstrated the lethal effectiveness of semi-automatic rifle fire. This event underscored a fundamental truth about modern warfare. Technological superiority and industrial production capacity can determine battle outcomes irrespective of human bravery or determination. The M1 Garand could deliver between 40 to 50 aimed shots per minute compared to the Arisaka's 15 to 20, with 8 rounds before reloading versus 5 for the Arisaka. The contrast between semi-automatic weapons and manual bolt-action rifles significantly influenced the outcome of battles in the Pacific War. The concentrated firepower provided by semi-automatic rifles could halt a banzai charge cold, while individual shots from bolt-action guns required constant reloading. This disparity, evident across millions of engagements from Guadalcanal to Okinawa, played a crucial role in determining the war's conclusion. On October 24, 1942, Lieutenant Kenji Yamamoto led an assault on Guadalcanal with his Type 38 Arisaka rifle, but did not survive. Despite the Arisaka's precision and robust construction, its bolt-action mechanism could not compete against the wall of semi-automatic fire it faced. After the battle, his weapon was found with 3 rounds still in the magazine. He had fired only twice while advancing 100 yards under intense enemy fire. His comrades were similarly outgunned, many lying dead with full magazines unused due to the overwhelming volume of American gunfire. This story underscores a broader truth. Bravery and resolve alone were insufficient against the sheer volume of firepower wielded by semi-automatic rifles like the M1 Garand. By war's end, the United States had manufactured 5.4 million M1 Garands, ensuring that every American infantryman had access to rapid-fire capabilities. In contrast, Japan remained constrained by its bolt-action technology and never matched the rate of fire offered by semi-automatic weapons. General George S. Patton's praise for the M1 Garand as the greatest battle implement ever devised was not exaggerated but rooted in mathematical reality. The rifle's effectiveness ranged from the steamy jungles of Guadalcanal to the volcanic terrain of Iwo Jima, where Marines used it to overcome Japanese defenses. From Cape Gloucester's rain, soaked horrors to anticipated urban combat in Japan itself, the M1 Garand proved indispensable. The distinctive sound of an empty clip being ejected, signaling 8 shots fired, became synonymous with American triumph in the Pacific. This noise symbolized enemy positions being neutralized and islands secured, inching closer to Tokyo Bay. In contrast, the Arisaka's strengths in accuracy and durability were insufficient against the technological advancements that semi-automatic rifles represented. Ultimately, the war's resolution hinged not on a single weapon or engagement, but on the cumulative impact of American industrial capacity and technological superiority. The M1 Garand emerged as a prominent emblem of this tactical edge at the individual soldier level. Each American infantryman or Marine armed with an M1 had the same firepower as 3 enemy fighters, a benefit no spiritual discipline or combat heritage could negate. Despite the Japanese soldier's bravery, dedication, and skill, he could only operate his rifle bolt so quickly. In contemporary warfare, rate of fire coupled with accuracy translated to survival. Today, Arisaka rifles are preserved in museums and private collections, admired for their craftsmanship and historical importance. Similarly, the M1 Garand has become a part of history, although many still function perfectly on shooting ranges across America. During their time, amidst the intense battles over the Pacific Islands, one weapon clearly outmatched the other. The semi-automatic nature of the M1 turned every American soldier into a formidable fire source, and this advantage spread throughout the expansive Pacific theater, contributing significantly to Allied victory. Ultimately, it was not courage or spirit that prevailed, but rather the mechanical reliability of gas-operated semi-automatic firing. With 8 rounds fired per magazine before requiring reloading, each soldier could maintain continuous combat effectiveness.